Hello, everybody. I'm Nanette Kennedy with Humanity's Team in the Evolution Revolution. We are here in the CWG book group, discussion group. We're reading Communion with God. We're on chapter 8. And since I have the Kindle version, I don't know what page that is if you've got the book.
Should be page 78.
Okay, page 78. All right. And I hope everybody's doing well. And those of us who in the U.S., hope you had good Thanksgivings. My refrigerator broke. It was not really a good time. But
oh dear.
Yeah, it's like the year my stove broke when the turkey was already in it. But anyway, what can you say? All righty. So, Linda, would you like to start reading?
Sure.
All right.
This is Communion with God, chapter 8, The Illusion of Conditionality. And this is God speaking. This is the 8th illusion. Conditionality exists. In order for condemnation to exist, there must be something that you don't understand about love. This was your conclusion, and you invented conditionality as a characteristic of life in order to resolve the dilemma that this presented. Everything in life must be conditional. Wasn't this self-evident? Some of the thinkers among you asked. Have you not understood the second illusion? The outcome of life is in doubt. Failure exists. That means you can fail to win God's love. God's love is conditional. You must meet the requirement. If you do not meet the requirement, you will be separated. Is this not what the third illusion taught you? Your cultural stories have been very persuasive. I've spoken in this communication largely through the stories of Western culture, because that is the culture in which this communication began. But the cultures of the East, and all the many cultures and traditions of humans in their wide variety, had their stories as well, and most are based on some or all of the 10 illusions. As I have made clear, there are more than 10 illusions. You're creating hundreds every day. Each of your cultures have created its own, but in some way or another, they are all based on the same basic misconceptions. This is evidenced by the fact that they have all created the same result. Life on your planet is filled with experiences of greed, violence, killing, and nearly everywhere, conditional love. You have learned conditional love from your thought that the love of the Supreme Being, however you conceptualize that being, is conditional. Or if you do not believe in a Supreme Being, but rather in life itself, then you have conceived of life as a process expressing itself within the context of conditionality. That is to say, one condition depends on another. Some of you would call this cause and effect. Yet what of first cause? That is the question none of you has been able to answer. Even your greatest scientists have not been able to unravel the mystery. Even your greatest philosophers have not been able to solve the problem. Who created that which creates? If you conceive of a cause and effect universe, fair enough. But what caused the first cause? This is where your teachers stumble. This is where your path ends. This is where you reach the edge of understanding. And now we shall fly off the edge. There is no conditionality in the universe. That which is that which is. And there are no conditions under which it is not. Do you understand? Is it not possible for what is not to be? There are no conditions under which that would be true. This is why life is eternal, because life is that which is. And that which is can never not be. Life always was, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. So too with God, for God is what life is. So too with love, for love is what God is. Love therefore knows no condition. Love simply is. Love cannot be, and there are no conditions under which it can be made to disappear. You may substitute the word life or the word God for love in the above sentence, and it would be equally true. Conditional love is an oxymoron. Do you get that? Can you understand that? The two are mutually exclusive. The experience of conditionality and the experience of love cannot exist at the same time in the same place. Your idea that they can is what is destroying you. Your civilization has chosen to live the eighth illusion at a very high level. The result is that your civilization itself is threatened with extinction. You are not threatened with extinction. You cannot be, for you are life itself. It's the form in which you express life at the present moment. The civilization which you have created and are about to uncreate is not unchangeable. It is the wonder of who you are that you can change form whenever you wish. Indeed, you do this all the time. If, however, you are enjoying the form in which you now experience yourself, why change it? That is the question facing the entire human race. Hang on, I have to cough. You have been given a paradise in which to live. Every possible joy of physical life has been made available to you. You are truly in a Garden of Eden. That part of your cultural story is real. Yet you have not been separated from me, and you never have to be. You can experience this paradise as long as you wish. Or you can deny it on a moment's notice. Which do you choose? You are about to choose the latter. Is that your choice? Is that your conscious decision? Look at this question very carefully. There is much riding on your answer. The lack of true conditionality in the universe notwithstanding, you have believed firmly that conditionality exists. Surely it exists in God's kingdom. Every one of your religions has taught you that. So it must exist in the universe at large. It was, you decided, a fact of life. So you have spent lifetimes trying to figure out what conditions would allow you to create the life and the afterlife that you desire if you did not meet the requirement. If you met the requirement, there was no problem. But what if you did not? This search has left you down a blind alley, for there are no conditions. You may have the life that you desire and whatever afterlife that you imagine simply by choosing it. This you do not believe. The formula can't be that simple, you say. No, you have to meet the requirement. You do not understand yourselves to be creative beings, nor do you understand me to be so. You imagine that I can somehow fail to have something that I desire. all my children returning home to me, which means that I must not be a truly creative being at all, but a dependent one. If I were truly creative, I would be able to create anything that I chose. But I seem to be dependent upon certain conditions in order to have what I want. Humans could not imagine what conditions could possibly have to be met in order for them to get back home to God. So they did the best they could and just made some up. These were explained through what you call religions. Religions could not only explain the requirements, but could also explain how one could recapture God's love if one did not meet the requirement. Thus, the concepts of forgiveness and salvation were born. They were the conditions of love. God says, I love you if. And these were the ifs. Had people looked at things objectively, the fact that every single religion explained forgiveness and salvation differently might have been proof that it was all being made up. But objectivity was not something humans proved to be particularly capable of. It is not something many humans are capable of, even today. You continue to declare that you are not making anything up. You say that the conditions of your return to God were established by me. And if there are several hundred different religions pointing to several thousand different conditions, it is not because I have given a mixed message, but because the human race has simply not gotten it right. You have gotten it right, of course. It's just those other people in those other religions who have not gotten it right. Now, there are lots of ways you could solve that. You could ignore them. You could try to convert them. You could even decide to simply eliminate them. Your race has tried all those things, and you had a right to do so, didn't you? You had a responsibility to do so, didn't you? Was this not the work of God? Were you not called upon to convince and convert others so that they too might know what was right? And was your killing and your ethnic cleansing not justified when others could not be convinced? Was there not something written, some unwritten something that gave you this right? These are the questions humans began to ask. Clearly, there was a flaw in the eighth illusion. This should have revealed the idea of conditionality as false. But humans knew that at some very deep level, they could not give up the illusion or something very vital would come to an end. Again, they were right, but again, they made a mistake. Instead of seeing the illusion as an illusion and using it for the purpose for which it was intended, they thought they had to fix the flaw. It was to fix the flaw in the eighth illusion that the ninth illusion was created.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody have some openers to get the conversation going?
I love the fact that love is not conditional. I never really thought about that, but if it's conditional, then it's not really love at all. And that makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Yep. And for those of us who have children, I think I don't want to say make a comparison, but I'm just going to say I think unconditional love is a little easier to understand, but I could be wrong.
I agree with you. we love our children the way we should love everyone. I've often told mine that there's nothing they could do that would make me stop loving them. And I'm sure that's the way God feels about all of his children, if you want to look at it in that frame. His, her, you know.
No, I think that's a good point.
I agree that it's easier with the children, but I think it's also because you can't walk out on them. Because to be honest, I have wanted to walk out on my children sometimes.
Yeah, too.
But of course I couldn't. But any man I could walk out on when I met those difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, yeah.
I think what we're comparing here is some kind of really unconditional love, like the love of God. And then we look at our love that we have for other people, not our children, as that's about as close to the love of God as you can get. But we really don't love other people that way. I mean, we just don't. I care about
I think
them.
a lot of parents don't love their children that way either.
You're right. They don't in this day and age. I don't know if it's always been that way, but there's a lot of parents that don't love their children. People that should never have been parents.
It's funny that you say about walking out on your children, because I was with my son yesterday and we were taking the dogs for a walk, and he wanted an argument with me. The same old argument that will go on and on and on. And I said, no, I'm not going there. I'm not having this argument with you. And I walked away. I kept walking with the dog and I walked off. So I did walk away. I didn't stop loving him. And whilst I was walking away, I was thinking how much I did love him and how much I was doing the right thing by walking away.
Yeah, I believe there is such a thing as tough love.
Yeah, that is a perfect example of tough love, I think. You know, unconditional love doesn't necessarily imply unconditional acceptance of behavior. And I think society is really afraid of unconditional love because they don't understand that you can love someone unconditionally and you can still look at their behavior and say, I'm sorry, I can't have that in my life.
Yeah, you're right.
No, it was yesterday actually was a real turning point. That was a big point I made to him yesterday, and it was an argument that would go on, and it was really a really good thing that happened and a real turning point for us. And I'm so pleased it happened.
That's beautiful.
Yep, it's finding funny. The gift.
Yeah, it's funny that it should come up this evening, but yeah, it happened only a few hours ago. I say this evening, it's different times of the day, obviously, where you all are.
Mm-hmm. I think too, as Lena was mentioning about children, I can remember a few times when my kids were smaller, not like infants, but 7 to 15 years old, that I knew if I didn't remove myself from the situation, that I was going to say things, yell things that I would regret. And so I used to, in my old house, the garage, which was attached to the house, you locked from inside the garage instead of outside the garage. It was just a glitch in whoever built the house. And I used to go out in the garage and put myself in timeout. I'm just like, nope, I am not engaging. I'm not engaging. I'm not engaging. You can kick, you can scream, you can do whatever you want through that door, but I am not taking the bait. Now, that isn't to say that I have not taken bait before. And usually when that happens, I'm already so far into of taking the bait that it's 10 minutes in that I realize, what am I doing? You know, I took that bait, hook, line, and sinker, and you know, our kids aren't stupid. They know our buttons. You know, they know which buttons to push, and it takes a lifetime of parenting to not take that bait. Sort of like what you were just saying, Angela. You just said, nope, I am not taking the bait. Some other fish can have it, you know.
The walking out that I'm talking about is the one that happens if you don't return. Because the walking away in conflicts and so on is, I think we all know that. But you have to return again, because you can't walk out for good on your children. And that's what I meant. It's not about rejecting to go into a struggle or things like that, but you have to come back again with the children. But if it was a husband, you might not. There's always the possibility of a divorce where you don't come back. But with the children, you have to come back, and that was what I meant with it.
Yeah, and I actually got that. I was just adding, because I couldn't leave my children. I mean, not leave them.
No.
You know, that's just, you know, it's never even on a list of possibilities.
I think we brought that problem into the way we relate to each other, though, and we don't have that tie that binds us like we do with our children. So we're walking away from each other and we're never coming back. That is where we leave the situation in the middle and we never resolve anything. Especially in this country, it seems to me like half the people have walked out on the other half. And it really depends on whatever we're talking about as to who's walking away. But there's no listening. There's no desire to work together. I don't know where this is going to leave us, but it concerns me greatly that we don't even talk to each other anymore.
I'll just add about going back to it. I have something else to say on that matter, because my son has a half brother and a half sister, and their mother. I mean, their mother walked out on them, and when I say walked out, I married their. The father was married to the original mother, and they were with us on holiday, and she said to keep them. I don't want them back. And then she never saw them again. They were 9 and 10 years old. So mothers do walk out. You know, some mothers do. They don't all go back. But it's very rare, I think, isn't it? But it happens.
Yes, I think it is rare, but I know it happens because I know of people it's happened to. And then I think about the illusion part of this. Like my biological dad died when I was 8. And because my little 8-year-old brain had some tough times accepting that, I thought he should have stayed, no matter how sick he was. Now, I have a completely different. Can you hang on one sec? But I think that there's different things that happen to us in life, and there's probably some children who wish one of the parents would leave. But children aren't built for all that that kind of heady stuff. And one of the things we were reading here a few minutes ago was, about how the religions change and this changes and that changes. And I remember when my youngest son was, I'm going to say 12 or 13, he and his best friend were both raised Catholic, but they decided they were going to make their own church. And it was really kind of funny. I didn't laugh at them, but they decided instead of not eating meat on Friday, they wouldn't eat chicken on Thursday. They made up these different little rules, and they still had goodness at its heart, but they were just copying another version of another religion, but they wanted to be parted from the Catholic Church. I was waiting for a letter to be nailed to my front door by Martin Luther, but they had this whole thing written up together, and I thought, for 12 and 13 years old, I wouldn't have even been thinking like that. But so they saw a way to change things over.
That's so funny. Now, who did you say they were? Who were the boys?
My youngest son and his best friend, and I think they were 12 or 13 when they came up. And one night at dinner, he said, "I can't eat chicken on Thursday." I was like, "What?" That's the way it is. They even had a name for it. I don't remember what the name was, but they've made it their own rules, and looking back, it's entertaining. I don't even know what I thought it was. I thought it was entertaining then too, probably. But
I guess they were mocking how arbitrary the rules are.
But that's exactly one of the things I thought about. I mean, you could make it no sausage Sunday. It doesn't matter. And we just took for granted that these rules came from somewhere godly. Anybody else?
I wanted to speak to what Angela Duck said about how we aren't talking to each other. And she was talking about like on a sort of countrywide, but I was thinking about this subject this morning actually with some friends that I had in the past who I'm not friends with anymore, and how they just kind of wrote me off without even telling me what I did wrong. There was no conversation about what they were upset about. I just sort of noticed, like one of them unfriended me on Facebook, and I thought maybe it was a mistake, and then was shocked to learn that she was really upset with me about something that she never said anything to me about. And all three of these people are friends who I thought were really close friends that would be in my life forever. And the way that they just didn't even bring up with me whatever my transgression was, and how this ties into this conditionality thing and the requirement thing, like really all of these things that we've been reading about playing themselves out, in a smaller way in my life, of just how quick people are to like write you off and walk away. for whatever, you know, I mean, I later found out what some of the things were, and I thought they were pretty minor, obviously. But just that attitude, which is the lack of unconditional sort of love, you know, I do tend to feel very attached to my friends, like they're like family to me, and I wouldn't just walk away without a conversation at least, you know. But I do think that tendency is there throughout our society in a lot of relationships, you know. So I guess that's what I wanted to add to this conversation. Over.
Are you basically saying, Mary, that they decided to punish you by applying sanctions against you?
I guess you could put it that way. If the sanction is that, yeah, that I'm no longer their friend. Yeah, it did feel that way. And, you know, punishing, it's just that thing where you don't even tell the person, like, tell me what I did wrong so I can have a chance to, you know, acknowledge, explain, learn from the error of my ways, make it up to you, something. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me, Mary, that it's a combination of bullying, you know, the power struggle, is that we don't want to tell you what you've done wrong because we're going to guilt trip you and isolate you. And this, I'm sorry, but as a Canadian, is what we're experiencing with the American government going against public opinion by trying to isolate Iran or put taxes on Canadian products and all that. It just seems to be filtering down into the society, down to the level of personal friendships, is that if our leader is bullying the world, well, heck, we'll bully Mary. And there's two of us, so two heads are meaner than one.
Except that some of these things happened pre-Trump, I think. But then that just has to do with the conditions that allowed him to flourish, maybe.
I think it's institutionalized judgment and the justification of America first. And I feel that as a Canadian living in Alberta, which produces oil, and our oil exports to the US are now cheaper than ever because of the shale oil, which is very damaging to the planet and to communities because of the
Fracking.
yeah, fracking. You know, just the damage that's being done to the planet for the sake of the buck. It's not spreading respect and love, that's for sure. Especially not to Albertans. We're all living in fear. And instead of blaming Donald Trump and the Republicans, we've got to find it somewhere in our hearts to love them And I think at the root of your problem with these two women is that if they were to ever tell Mary what she's done, they'd have to face their own meanness. And that's why they're not telling you. Let's pin it on Mary, and then we can walk away justifying ourselves in self-righteousness. But it's not long-lasting. And it causes tremendous damage, more to themselves than to you, as it will to America, because the whole institution of democracy is undermined by this kind of behavior. So it's just a sadness translated as meanness, and it's infecting all of us. And this group is lucky enough to read the book and do something about it, because our hearts are powerful.
In fact, I think it goes deeper than that. I think somehow it's in the collective, and there wouldn't be no Trump if it wasn't some collective pull that makes him able to be there. And I kind of think that the women in Mary's case have lost the connection to the oneness, as we all do sometimes, and when they have lost this connection, they don't see Mary as, if they're bullying, they're also bullying themselves, because you don't it's kind of hard to find words, but it's when we don't see this that we kind of dehumanize.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And that also connects to this other thing that's been happening that's been so upsetting to me, which is these white women in their places of work being threatened by Black men being in that place of business, doing nothing at all except being present, and then they call the police on them, which is to me sort of the ultimate dehumanizing and like demonizing and not seeing the shared humanity, especially when you know that that could actually result in that person getting killed by a police officer. That's not an unusual outcome. And, you know, there was another thing recently where this guy was in the yogurt shop supervising a visit with the mother and the child. Like, he was there, it was his job. And they called the police, and the police told him to leave. And it's like, and that sadly, it seems like it's often white females who are feeling threatened by this man of color. And I don't know. Anyway, that's what came up while you were talking, and I can't put any more words on it. But it's like part of what it says in this book is that we use these illusions to make war against each other, you know, as much as like on a global sort of level, but like I think on a personal level as well, right? We use these illusions to just as weapons. Very sad. Thank you.
It's terribly sad. And I'm going to guess for most of the world, every day you can pick up a paper or turn on the news and hear something that's sad like that. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, and I know that the U.S. started this with that, I can't think of his name right now, the first guy that made the news for sexually harassing women, and he lost his job. He was a California director, Weinstein or Einstein or Harvey. I can't think of his name.
Harold Weinstein.
Yes.
Harvey Weinstein, you got it.
Yeah, okay. And I think about that and how many women came together from all over the world on that Me Too campaign. And I can't remember who I was talking to. Oh, I was talking to somebody that works at the grocery store I go to. And he said, well, you don't believe all that BS, do you? I said, what do you mean I don't believe in that BS? I said, this has been going on with women since the beginning of time. You know, that we've been treated, and I'm not getting up on a women's liberty high horse here, but when I confided in this guy that I bet almost everybody I know has been harassed or assaulted or raped that's a woman. And that's not an exaggeration. It really isn't, and myself included. And so when I hear somebody say, I think these are just women that just want to try to go get money from somebody that something happened to them 20 years ago. Well, I'm not going after anybody, but I'm here to tell you, of course, I don't think any of those people have any money anyway. But the fact is, slowly, things are beginning to change in that department where people are saying, I'm not going to be quiet anymore. You know, unfortunately, it's of the norm and not the, can't think of that word either. Anyway, over.
I was looking at page 81 that Linda just read. More or less in the middle, a little below the middle of the page, it says, you can experience this paradise as long as you wish, or you can destroy it on a moment's notice. Which do you choose? You're about to choose the latter. Is that your choice? Is that your conscious decision? Look at this question very carefully. There is much riding on your answer. And as far as I can tell, from what Mary and Lena and Nanette have just said, we're looking at the past, at what people are saying now, their assessment. And it's getting to 10 minutes before the hour. And all I can think is that in the present moment, we can be proactive, that whatever has happened before, it's too late to change. But as a group, if we consciously pool our heart energy here and now in the meditation, perhaps we can change the matrix which is coming down, because all that happens at this lowest level of manifestation, which is the material plane, originates higher up. So if we're in agreement, I could do a meditation to this effect now.
I'm good with that. Does anybody else have anything they want to offer before we do the meditation?
Yeah, let me just add this thought, which is that we're all connected, right? The physical world that we look out and see is truly an illusion. And we're really a part of everything and everyone else that we see. So like the tool, one of the tools that I use is to remember, especially when I'm having a conversation that's challenging with someone, is to remember that I'm speaking to myself. Like what I'm saying to you, whatever it may be, I'm also saying to myself. And so it's the way that I remember not to make the mistake of calling people names or saying that they were, even saying that that was an idiotic thing to say is really not an appropriate way to try and converse with someone, because you're labeling what they said. You might not be labeling them, but you're labeling what they said. And so just holding that concept of oneness as we're trying to communicate with other people is one of the tools that I use to keep me from straying off into egoic talk or judgmental talk. I'm complete. Thank you.
That's a very good point, Linda. And this is one of those fine lines for me. So I'm saying this to me. Where do I stay silenced and be walked on like a rug? Or is there some kind way for me to say, that's not appropriate? Because that is judgmental to say something like that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, Michelle Harvey made a post yesterday on Facebook, and there was a discussion. It was about climate. Oh, no, it was about the lawsuit that's in New York City about the charity conflicts from the Trump charity money. And there was this conversation going on, and then this guy comes along and basically says, well, this is a waste of time, and it's a waste of money, and this president's done great things, and so then there was the response to that comment of his, and then he started name calling people and saying people were morons. He called me a fat, ugly moron. Yeah, yeah. It was really it was fascinating. It's really fascinating because I realized that, like, I don't take that personally. That's one of the 4 agreements, right? Those words were a reflection of him. What was also a reflection of him, though, was that I had triggered him, as I said something that basically, I just suggested that he might want to look at some different news sources, because you could tell basically from what he was saying, what he's been listening to and watching. It's very clear. There's a story out there and they all believe it. And it's not real, but it's real for them. And so I had just very lovingly, and I even said to him, we all love you here. We'll love you more if you get up to speed on what's really happening, but we all still love you regardless. And that, I'm telling you, it was after that he called me a fat, ugly moron and some other stuff. And so, you just have to really realize that people, they're triggered. They're in some kind of emotional turmoil, and you just have to love them. And I don't know if I'm answering the question, Annette.
No, I think you hit the high points, and it's obviously a much larger conversation that we can have further down the road, because I think it's an important one, but I don't want Shabana to miss her
right
meditation. But
I
thank
agree.
you for your response. Okay, Shabana.
Lord God, there's only one answer to everything, and that is love. Doesn't matter what the question is, the answer is love. So every heart here in this group is uniting now at this moment with the intention to call down the glue that binds the universes, and that is love. It doesn't matter what comes up. We're not getting into any illusion or any way to patch up anything. We're just asking you to glue this world back into oneness with love. Amen. Thank you already, God, that it is done. Amen.
That was good. That felt really good.
It was.
Well, if we believe it, we'll see it, and I believe it. And we all do.
Thank you, Shabana.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate what you said just before the meditation. It helped a lot.
I want to thank everybody, Shabana, Angela Duck, Lena, Sarah, Mary, Linda, Angela Means, and it looks like Ann is on the line. So thank you, everybody. And we'll see each other next Sunday and move ahead. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Please leave that up for a little bit.
I'm not gonna take it down.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put it up on the evolution page and just say, if it looks weird, it is weird. Because I believe it and I see it.
Nanette, do you think it would be appropriate for me to invite some people from the Deep Self Evolution Facebook page to come to our?
Yeah, you can't do that.
Huh?
You can't.
Can't?
No.
Why?
Because we're promoting something specifically for Barbara Marx Hubbard, and that this has nothing to do with Barbara Marx Hubbard. So,
Okay.
Got it.
Yep. And
She could invite them privately if she were friends with them, though, couldn't she?
yeah, and one of the problems with letting people advertise something, and I've found this on every page that's a group page, all of a sudden everybody and their dog is selling sunglasses and t-shirts and different this and different that, and then there's no substance to the group itself because it's not focused.
Right.
But and you know, there's a million bazillion other places people can do that. It's just not on these events that we do. So, but thanks for asking, Angela.
Okay, I wanted to ask before I did it because I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yep. Alrighty, everybody. Love you all. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.